as brothers, we can live in a certain way and we can trust each other. And I don't have to try to be someone I'm not. Or I can let Father PT be himself, but at the same time, like we can call each other deeper, right? But what does that look like as friends? But because we trust each other. Or again, the dynamics we're talking about as you know, if you know you're a boss and you have people under you you're working with, or if you're a coach and you're trying to help people, or like, so examples can go on. But I think trust is a fundamental dynamic. Freedom's a fundamental dynamic.
Poco a poco vamos a llegar. Somos peregrinos and you know that's who we are. We make our way. Hey, hey.
Hey, I'm Father Mark.
Peace.
What was that?
Like, my man was like, we need to move. I just was like,
What is that?
I don't know what happened with me. I was just like in it. I just wanted to get after it.
Yeah, I'm Father PT.
Hey, everybody.
That was funny.
Brother or Father Regina Chaley here. Anybody?
No.
Nope.
No, I'm with you, bro. Father
Okay.
Angeles, Regina Chaley.
Oh, that's what you're doing. I see.
See that play on words there, huh?
I get it.
Play
Huh?
on
Anybody?
Easter season.
Easter season.
We don't
season.
say the Angelus. We pray sing the Regina Chaley.
I'm going to try that again and have you guys respond. Hello, everybody. Father Regina Chaley here.
Whoa, that's amazing.
I would say more Father Easter Lily.
That was pretty funny. That was good.
Thank you.
And I'm Father Innocent. Cheers.
Anything else?
LaCroix. We have LaCroix all around.
We were talking about whether or not I would drink these on a normal day, and I said yes, but I wouldn't feel good about it. Here I am.
I went downstairs
still
during the
Easter
break
season.
and we had 4 big, huge boxes from Costco, and I opened them up and they were all filled with LaCroix. So I kind of felt like it was
This is
the
so
Easter.
funny. We don't. Do
You know when I stopped it, I quoted for the gospel. It's the Lord.
you know who this is coming from?
Yes.
Oh, we do know.
I do.
Oh, okay. When we were in LSU for like 5 days, I got like 5 donations of it, like different donations.
Well, there was no mark, but one of the brothers said that one of the people that we visited said they were going to send it as well. So could be your people.
I got to chill out a little bit. We can only do this during Easter season. We don't need to get.
Let's actually start to ask for things we need.
I don't understand. Like, there's no huge boxes of LaCroix at Our Lady of the Angels Friday.
Let's start begging for things we need. We need a minivan. There's people out there that want to donate their minivan over 3 years old. What else do we need? We need a toilet. We're redoing bathrooms.
Our bathrooms are a mess.
What else do we need?
But seriously, let's talk after about the minivan.
Oh,
You guys
we're
got
going to
one?
make a deal? We're going to make a deal?
Talk after. I'm gonna have this conversation on camera.
I'll give you 2 boxes of LaCroix.
I want you.
One minivan.
No.
All right.
Honey buns, bro.
And funny. Anyway, this episode is about fraternal correction. So we're all going to correct Father Pierre Toussaint.
Bring it.
Bro, we just want to thank you for just being here, bro. And
So here's
enlighten us. We've talked about this before.
Well, hold
give
on.
us a sense of why we're talking about it again.
LaCroix's bringing out some life in this guy.
No, it's Easter.
What's in that?
It's Easter.
all right. Regina. I feel like
You did it to yourself. I'm sorry.
I'm surprised the Boschlins were doing all week. I'm surprised that it hasn't come up with everybody else either.
Father Pierre Toussaint, you're a local servant.
Yes, sir.
Which means you're in charge of a friary, right?
Yeah, at least that's what on
That's
paper.
the idea, right? What if like no one's going to Our Lady of the Angels Friary, right? And they're opening the silverware drawer, taking out a fork and knife, and just leaving it open, right?
No.
That wouldn't be acceptable behavior.
No.
Or what else would they not be doing? They wouldn't be going and grabbing like a cup of water and grabbing the cup out and just leaving the whole thing open. Like if that kept happening, you'd be like, hey guys, let's close the.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what else would there be? There's like the little medicine closet upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
If you grab something, you open the door,
You have a
close
thing with
it.
things being left open?
Well, so
No,
right,
just wait for it. There's one more thing.
That's a thing, right?
End with the thing.
Or people,
Yeah, here we go.
people like sleep in their beds and they make their beds even though they know to use it again.
Nope, not
They're
it.
gonna have to
There's
undo
one
it.
more. There's one more.
I know. So why do we not put the toilet seat down when we're done using the toilet?
Are you seriously?
Toilet cover, not
Yeah,
the
yeah,
seat
yeah.
cover.
Okay.
So I just don't get the logic.
Of not putting the toilet cover down?
The whole
Yeah.
You
the
put
whole
the cover
thing.
down?
Everything down. Yeah.
He-
I do
he took-
too. I thought we differed on this. I
No,
remember
no,
a
no, no,
conversation.
no. Oh no.
But it's not common among men to live in a house where they like put the covers.
But we all close the drawers.
Well, you were building up to
Cabinets.
like closing things that need to be closed.
Yeah,
And you
even
feel
though
like the-
even though to use it again, you're gonna open it. It's just something we do all the time.
but not with the toilet. Father PT, tell me what you think because it's not
I'm
a thing.
not with you on this thing. Because like, first of all, my world is a local servant. I'm not gonna correct brothers at the house meeting. We have like
No, it's not like a big thing.
7 toilets in our house before. Brothers, can we please put the toilet seat down, the cover? But also too, like, I don't think that's just a thing.
But that's why
Anyway, I'm just trying to
he
think
gets
how to
really
say this.
angsty about this.
Yeah,
it
Like,
just seems
especially
like it feels like you're leaving things open.
in a house full of guys. You know what I mean? Like,
But still, like I'm saying, the whole you don't do that with the forks and the knives or the cups or the.
that's a false dichotomy. You can't say forks and knives in a toilet seat.
but
like,
it's a
okay.
thing that you open or close. You open to use. Why not
All
close it when you're done using it? You do that all the time.
Wow.
That's all I'm saying.
So you open and close things that you use all the time.
I mean, pretty commonly.
Do you
It's a
leave
general
do you-
principle
Do
he
you leave the
follows.
shower curtain open? Or
No,
close
you have
it?
to close it because it gets mildew.
Yeah, but that's a
Just asking
you
questions.
close
here.
it. That's what I'm saying. But you close it.
Do you
Just seeking understanding, bro.
the laundry? So like the door for the laundry, open or close?
Well, I think we usually leave it a little bit open so it can like breathe, right?
Air out.
You're trying to let the toilet breathe.
I'm just saying. Sometimes these things are not consistent in the way we do them.
In my office that I use at St. Joseph's Friary, it has a bathroom, and I can always tell when other people have been using it because,
I always close it. I use it
the toilet
sometimes,
seat's
but I
up.
always close it.
and so it's just something I noticed, and then it's not a big deal. I grew up closing it. I know it's a big deal for some people. So sorry if it's a contentious thing, like in your home or whatever. But I'm just but like for like some couples or something like that.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You fall into the toilet once in the middle of the night and you start to have a strong opinion.
That's not a fun thing to like fall into the toilet. I'm not proposing that, but the cover is different than the seat.
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to say.
I think there's a legitimate case, especially where there's women. Like, hey, toilet seat down when you're done. That's a real conversation.
That's a thing.
But toilet cover? Come on, bro. We're talking about covers. We're not talking about seats. We're talking about covers, bro. We're talking about covers.
not seats,
Not
about
seats, but
covers,
covers. Sorry, I don't have a reference.
bro. Anyway, that's just I don't just a question. Just a question to throw out there.
You'd be asking other questions, bro.
Do you want to know how long I have been holding on to this question to talk about on the podcast? Probably, I think it came up in like October.
Wow.
Probably like six months. It's like, this is funny.
Wow.
But then like sitting with it wasn't the right moment.
Brewing.
Just observing, taking it in. Anyway, I bet none of our listeners expected that. So now that we've had that fun conversation,
Is there some sort of connection?
no, not really. Just an observation. It's like, it just,
Can you relay that to the risen Lord?
It's not sitting well with me. I'm sorry.
which part? You want to put the cover seat, you want to leave it up?
Yeah, but like, really? That you're gonna
Talk about that?
just the cover? We're talking about the cover, not the seat. I'm stuck on that.
I just think it's like, it looks sloppy. You're just like leaving something open that should be closed.
Okay, so maybe that's a bigger question. Like, what is it? Like, what are you trying to accomplish by having the cover seat? I mean, the cover down.
Human decency.
Human decency.
Respect.
How is that an offense against human decency? and
We
respect?
we turn off lights when we leave rooms.
But like, okay, so
we
you're
close
proposing a
drawers.
principle. What are you trying to get at though? Like, because when I flush the toilet, there's stuff that flies in the air. Like, what are you?
No, I don't really care about that. It's more just,
It's just looks, aesthetics.
yeah. It's
Well,
like,
I'm done with this conversation.
it's like we're at a friary, and maybe we talked about it before, where somebody trying to be more like efficient instead of like serving the food in like serving dishes, wanted to serve it in Tupperware because it just like saved a step. It was one
Yeah,
less
and then
dish.
you
I'm just like, but there's something about that that's like not quite. There's just something not quite proper about that.
But it's common to leave the toilet cover up. It's not common to serve
I just don't get why.
dinner
I just don't get why it is.
in Tupperware.
All right, let's talk about fraternal correction for the second time.
Okay. So here's we brought it up in one of the hot takes, the last hot take episode, and I think it was there's just probably more to it than fit in there. And talking about it, I think brought it up, and And I think there's like, to begin with, I think there's like some important distinctions to make that we didn't make. And I like distinctions and I like clarity. Because I think not every relationship is the same. And so like not every, if you will, like correction, or fraternal correction, like we use that in a lot of different ways, right? So there's a way in which a parent has a responsibility to correct and to guide their child that's different than the relationship that a boss has with somebody under them. That's different than the relationship that a formator has with one of the people they're forming. That's different that the relationship that we have. That's different than the relationship we have with like a friend, or different than we have with a stranger on the street. And that's different than like the postulants have with one another, right? I think we talk about fraternal correction sometimes and try and like, but we don't understand like that there's just a variety of different relationships and what's appropriate and what's expected in these different relationships. It does depend on the context, right? And just even to place this in like classic Catholic moral theology is, you know, like we judge and act by the object, the intention, and the circumstance. Like the circumstance, like what the relationship is, it does affect like what we're called to do. And the reason I'm bringing it up again is I do think that there is, especially in young, I'll say like young, kind of fired up Catholics or Christians, particularly young men. I think it actually is a thing. Like there's a bit of like an emphasis put on fraternal correction that's like basically, you know, it's like it probably gives it more priority than is necessary. But also there's like this idea of, well, we just need to give the hard truth and the straight truth, and it's like up for you to take it. So I think that's something that like pastorally is out there that ends up getting people hurt. But also I think that there's a lot of people, and I experience this in my own life. It's like, okay, my friend uses the Lord's name in vain. Like, what do I do? Or my friends are going to parties and to like drinking and doing things they shouldn't be. Like, what's my responsibility there? Or the person who's behind me in the grocery store starts saying things, and like I don't like, do I do something or not? And I think like there can be a lot of people can experience some like anxiety or kind of anxiousness about like what they're supposed to do. And so I'd like our conversation to also kind of bring some clarity in that realm. Before kind of focusing in, do you guys just have any other sort of initial thoughts?
I do, and it's
Great.
probably something I said a couple weeks ago when this happened, but I don't think it needs to take a lot of time, but I think just trust is a huge factor, right? And communication in general, and all the relationships that you just spoke of, is that I think in any place of where there's real communion or responsibility, like in whether it's again coworkers to boss to formators to brothers to friends to spouses, you know, like we have to just recognize that the dynamics of relationships are trust, right? And I think generally, like again, that interesting one about if you're at the grocery store and you don't know this person and he like kind of starts blaspheming God, like or whatever, like that's kind of a dramatic example, but like what, there's not trust between you, but like what do you have, like what responsibility do you have to, you know, to step in? That's kind of maybe something different. But I just want to throw out the dynamic. So when you start to talk about fraternal correction, living in communication with people, and you start talking about responsibilities we have to one another and all the different types of relationships, like we just have to recognize that I think a fundamental dynamic is trust. Is that who is this person, and do I really see them, and do they really see me as in this relationship? Can I receive them for the gift of who they are in the gifts and kind of the gaps of their life? Like, are we really living in communion? I think that's a good starting place, because when we're living in communion, we begin to understand like who I am and who like Father PT is, right? Like as brothers, we can live in a certain way and we can trust each other, and I don't have to try to be someone I'm not. Or I can let Father PT be himself, but at the same time, like we can call each other deeper, right? But what does that look like as friends? But because we trust each other, or again, the dynamics we're talking about as you know, you're a boss and you have people under you you're working with, or if you're a coach and you're trying to help people, or like, so examples can go on, but I think trust is a fundamental dynamic. Freedom's a fundamental dynamic. And at some point I would like to talk about like above the line, below the line, but the communication styles.
Just to add to that, I was just talking to my guys on the vocation team today, and we were just talking about how to have hard conversations with guys. I think we might be unique as a community when we actually want to form guys and walk with guys in a way that is clear. So if a guy is not a good fit for our way of life, we want to be clear in the questions why. But that can be hard sometimes. So we have to have hard conversations. And so like while it not might like be fraternal correction, we want to live in a space with a guy to speak the truth and love him in that. But I was talking about it, and I used this word this morning, like we want to be allies in the guy's discernment. We want to be seen as allies rather than their enemy, right? So just it's not just a transaction, and I'm not just giving you a yes or no based on what you're giving me, but like I'm an ally with you in discerning God's will. And so if they consider me an ally, I can give them a hard word and they can receive it, because they know they're loved and there's this relationship. This kind of discernment takes a little more work, because you got to get to know a guy before you can be like, bro, I have to have a hard conversation with you right now, just about your maybe capacity to live our life, right? So yeah, do people in your life consider you an ally? Do they consider you someone that's for them? And that's for their good, and that in this ability to trust and to share life together where I can receive hard things, and so I just to use a different term, I think, and I don't know about the guy in the like the obligation we have the guy who's doing something crazy in the grocery store, like that's a unique thing. But most guys, when in the fruitfulness of the reality of hard conversations or fraternal correction, it's probably most fruitfully going to be done when there's this gift of acknowledged relationship and trust.
Yeah, and it's going back to the point that you made, Father Mark Mary, just as far as like just relationships are different across the board, where like for my coach, if I'm playing a sport, I'm expecting him or her to say something like pointed and to be directive about it, not to like kind of beat around the bush.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Father Innocent, it was really cool how you did this and that, like kind of get the affirmation sandwich and then say something critical. But for parents, something too, like, okay, there's going to be times where you need to say something. But then I guess where we're going with this is like the lines become a little bit blurry when it's just a brother to brother. And like, how do I recognize, okay, what's my relationship here with a specific person? And so just to understand that, that maybe once again, and said this previous, but not every time is the right time to say something, but we'll flesh this out a little bit more. But just like, what's my heart in this? Like, what do I desire? Do I just want to be the person to tell you what you did wrong? Or do I actually care about like your future? And hey, this is why I think this is a bad thing. So specific to the guy who's cussing up a storm, it's getting worse and worse in my mind. It's like he's throwing stuff in the aisles. And anyway, like maybe you do say something like, hey, like just in the name of Jesus Christ, stop it. or whatever. Or like it's a simple, like just a simple smile, like, hey, God bless, have a good day. Or like something like just to call him back to the reality. He's a beloved son or daughter. If it's a he, it's obviously one there. Sorry, it's a little LaCroix. But just to call him back to the reality, like, hey, your destiny's not just at this end of the store. I mean, the checkout line, your destiny's hopefully heaven. And to bring him back to that truth of who they are. But once again, I think the most important thing at first is to acknowledge that there's a relationship, and given who we are in that relationship will, I guess, dictate the appropriate response we have to the person that we desire to correct, or how it's coming up in the relationship to kind of give the corrective word.
Sorry, something's not sitting right with me. It just, maybe I feel this because again, working with young guys, but I do struggle. Maybe personally, just from my own experience of kind of being the guy sometimes in my own immaturity, but I kind of struggle sometimes with the guy that is just like kind of the young man nowadays that would like take control and be like, all right, it's my responsibility that I have to like correct everybody. Mm-hmm. There's like an angst in me because maybe I was like that when I was younger, like where you just feel like you have to be the one to like kind of fix people. And like, well, like there's this term, I'll kind of keep it general, but there's this term that young men use nowadays. Well, I just want to call people higher. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, bro, but like that even comes across as like, as you're just kind of, that you kind of know it all, or that somehow there's just like kind of an ego or a pride that somehow that I kind of like I'm just kind of, that I'm kind of like self-focused and I kind of know what's best. In particular, I think in situations where you're young, maybe you lack experience And I mean, there could be a whole slew of things where you might just want to be careful of, right? Because you just want to be careful that you don't come across as like that I know what's best and I'm going to fix everybody and everybody just needs to do what I say, right? Like people come, you're like rescuing people, or like people come your projects. I just don't know. We want to be in a place now. It's not black and white, but I think we want to just be very careful that we take on this identity that like we're the guy that's always kind of has our list of corrections. I've been a part of, experiences in our life where like people come and like there's always something wrong, and it really like you really lack freedom and patience, and people become not a safe place. Right, man, that guy's always just like I just can't be myself. I can't be weak. He's always just like correcting me and telling me like, well, we got to do this and we got to do this. I'm like, man, like I just never feel good enough around you. I just think we don't want to create a space in friendships or like on a college campus where we get a reputation where we're just kind of hard like that. And so I feel that particularly interiorly that I want to protect young men from being in a place where they own kind of that identity. So I think it's trust. I think it's patience. I think, yeah, you just want to be patient with yourself. You want to be patient with other people, and just be careful of kind of stepping into a place where you become that guy.
I was laughing to myself because we talked about self-protection last episode. Sometimes people have every right to protect themselves, because if you got the fixer on hand and he's poking around, you're like, bro, get away from me. You know what I mean? Like quit poking around my wounds a little bit and quit trying to fix me. So sometimes that's why I have a lot of patience with people who protect, because pain and like hurt, it's a real thing, especially if you have people around just trying to fix you or take control of you or not have a relationship with you before they get in there and love you there. Right. So I have like, it's just funny. Like sometimes I explain to the posh ones because we talked exactly about this, but just like, brothers, let's not try to fix each other. Like that's not your responsibility, is to fix your brother. Right. But what is it like to experience him as a mystery and experience him as a gift from the Lord. Right. And to be able to love him there, not to fix him, and so, but it's hard sometimes, especially for guys who it seems like masculine to be this way, to be excited about like fixing everybody and solving everybody's problems and stuff. But the more, many, many, many years into this now, like you were like, wow, like to receive someone and just to be with them in it rather than, get fired up about it.
Yeah. A couple of different experiences I'll share. The first is just recognizing that we're all broken. At the end of the day, like nobody's perfect, right? And I remember I was with a brother, and we were with our young adults doing something. Oh, we were giving out sandwiches near where we live, and him and I were back like manning the soup or sandwich station, and the young adults were off doing their thing, giving the sandwiches to the young adults, and we were just talking. He said, man, it's crazy how many people just here are addicted to something, meaning, like whatever, drugs and stuff like that. And it's kind of just like out there and they're doing these things. Like, isn't that a shame? I was like, well, bro, like we're all addicted to something in some way, shape or form. It's just public. Like ours are private, And so I think when you approach a situation like that specifically and something you see is wrong, like recognizing that, okay, like I'm also broken too. So I'm not going to approach this as I have everything figured out. Therefore, I'm proposing that I'm the solution or I know how to get out of this. But Jesus has to be the answer. At the end of the day, like you point the person back to Jesus and say, hey, look, bro, this is something specifically with the Lord for you to look at. But coming from a place of compassion as opposed to a place of judgment, number one. Number two, with the patience and the long suffering, I think it's beautiful. Just if you think about this, like thanks be to God, none of us are God, right? Like, and thanks be to God that God doesn't judge the way that we do. Because yeah, there would just be a lot worse off for us. He's super patient with us, especially in our sins and our falls and our failings. And I'm not saying this to say like continue sinning, continue not being like good men and women. But I remember another situation was, I was somewhere and I was consistently around this person who was cursing, and it bothered me. But I was like, okay, Lord, what do I do with this? And I just waited and I got to know this person more. And eventually, like at some point in time, after some period of time, he said something. And I just looked at him and said, bro, you're better than that. I just looked at him and was like, you're better than that. And he got it. That's all I said. And because there was a relationship that was built, he knew that I knew that he was actually better than that. It wasn't just like a, hey, buddy, like stop cursing because whatever it is. And because of that, I guess the equity built in the trust, you're able to kind of have a little bit more of a buy-in from the person, but even more so, like, once again, like, I care for you and you're better than that. You don't have to speak that way, because once again, that's not praising the Lord. And so, but just by simply saying a simple word, with having the patience and like the trust from the person, you could do more as opposed to cursing, hey, and like immediately coming in with the fraternal correction, because I know, once again, the Lord's patient with me and my own failings and fallings. So.
So a kind of a list of things. I can't read all my writing. Because I do think there's this topic is actually very, very much something that people are thinking about quite a bit and experiencing and having responses and feelings about, right? And I think this is part of what we want to add to the conversation is I think there's like just like feeling like their pastors and their leaders and their shepherds aren't like shepherding, and so there's part of this as well is like we're just really thirsty for someone to be bold and to call people out and to be strong. And I think that there's like there is some truth to that, right? And I think if you have experiences of being hurt and feeling like you weren't really fought for, like that's gonna have like a real pain. And but yeah, what all is happening, we don't always really know. Right. And so then it's like when you see voices that are out there that are very like bold and very kind of aggressive and very this, it's like it's easy to kind of like get excited about them and sort of like really, really, really kind of elevate them, because with this idea of like, okay, they're like, at least somebody's speaking the truth. But there's this question like, okay, but like, is this the Spirit of the Lord? And some of these just like, I think for like real, like those of us who are kind of, you just have a sense like, okay, that's not it. But I think it's just fair that like, there's people who have been hurt. And so part of their hurt is like, they've felt sort of not fought for, they felt not protected, and they're just looking for that. So a couple other things is I also think that something to be careful of is like your desire and your sort of like quickness to correct and try and fix and try and like all that sort of stuff. Is that really just frustration dressed as charity? Because I think a lot of that, you'll see that is there's like people are just frustrated. And so like these people are doing stuff. I don't like it. I'm frustrated. I know that there's a scriptural principle and a Catholic principle of fraternal correction. I'm going to call this fraternal correction. And really what it is, it's just an outlet for me with my frustration. It's like, okay, well, like, let's just be honest and do some discerning. And I think there's a lot of that of like, just sort of, if you will, like, again, just we're calling it Christianity. We're calling it fraternal correction. We're calling it sort of evangelizing and the truth. But really what we're doing is just acting from a place of frustration. So I think that's a real thing that's out there. We are such a messes with our coughs, man. Sorry, I know we're gonna get some guys like, stop coughing. You shouldn't record unless you can stop coughing, but we can't. We don't have that freedom. The idea that like anyone
I'm doing great.
That anyone should be able to like, we should all just be able to give the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, bold truth, anytime, anywhere, anyhow, and everyone should be able to take it. That's not human, and that's not like, we just need to understand. Like that's just not it. And that's not humanity. And again, like I think on sports fields, like you can be like, okay, you need to get back on defense and you can be bold and direct, but just the way you do that and the way you talk about other stuff, it's just different. And then one of the sort of the last things before the other list is fraternal corrections. It can't be about you. Because I think, again, one time it's like, I'm frustrated. I want an outlet for my frustration. So I'm going to do this. Or I feel like an anxiety that like I need to, the Lord, like there's this like, okay, there's a scripture about like, if you don't correct your brother, like their sin's on you. Like I need to do this to protect myself. And if it, again, like just, if you're doing it really about yourself, it's not going to work. So those are some things. There is an art to it. There's a way to do it. It is a Christian principle, all that sort of stuff. But I think we just have to be discerning about like what else is going on here. I'm going to use some discernment stuff, which I think is helpful. And then we can kind of continue on. When I'm like, I have a talk on somebody else named it, how to discern everything, pretty much everything, something like that. It's a Ascension video. But I think you can use it with like the correction, because I go through kind of like these 4 principles. Like, what are my duties and responsibilities? What are like the needs? What are like my desires, and what are like my capacities, right? And so like, okay, there's a real question, like, do I have a responsibility towards this person, right? Again, like parent towards child, yes. Formator towards somebody, like, yes. Even servant towards people, like, you know what, it is actually my job to make sure that things are going well. Like, I do actually have a responsibility. Do I have like do I have that responsibility to the guy behind me in the grocery store? I don't, you know, as a postulant, whatever. Do I really have it towards the other guy? Like, not in the same sort of way. Do people need it? Sure. Does it have to be for me? We don't really know. Right. Like, again, this is the thing. This is, I think, where people can kind of get off in like a wrong area, is just like, there's a sense that like the world needs to be corrected, and I need to be the one to do it, and the Lord needs me, and if I don't do it, like, we're all gonna. He's like, well, no, like, hold on, like, we're just like, you don't need to stop like carrying the weight of the world like on your own shoulders. Like, it's not all. You don't need to do everything. And I think the more you mature, the more we kind of like live in just like, hey, Lord, I trust this person to you. Desires, do I want to do it? Do I not want to do it? That's not the most important factor. And then like capacity is the one that I would use. Like, do I actually have influence? Can I actually have, like, if I try and correct this person, do I actually have the ability, the art, the influence, the trust to actually have an effect? And so if you don't, like, you might try and do it, and it's like you might do more harm than good, or you might just do nothing. And like all of these, I think, are real things to like factor into the discernment. Again, like, do I have a responsibility towards this person? And to what degree? You know, like if you're on a mission team together, there is some like commitment to one another, but also like they're just not your child, and like they're not your sheep, you're not their pastor. So there is something to that, whether or not it's for you or not somebody else, the Lord. And I do think this thing of like, but can I actually do it? Like I think we've had a lot of these experiences. I remember one of the first fraternal corrections I received was basically somebody telling me they didn't like anything about me. And it's like they thought that they were like doing this fraternal correction exercise. They thought it was like charity is the right thing, but basically it just made me like not want to. Like, it just made me like hurt and like not want to be in a relationship with this person. Like the fruit of it like was not good, you know. And so I think, like, again, do I have the skill set to do this? I think is a real question as well.
I was just thinking, just on that last one, I figured that's where you were going, and I just wrote this, like, hurt people.
Yeah.
Like, so just the reality of like maybe you're in a season of your life when you're going through a lot of stuff, and you just, you know, aren't in a good place to have these conversations. Like the maturity just to recognize that. Because if you're hurt and angsty, and you're just gonna every time you talk to somebody, every time you correct somebody, every time you know, and you're just gonna get upset and make it worse, it's probably just not, you know, of the Lord. Yeah. Right. So it's just good. I love the idea of like discerning capacity. Am I in a good place right now to do this? And if you're not, then that's where you trust in the Lord's going to take care of this person, this situation, this dynamic that might be difficult or might need a correction. But I'm just not in a good place to do it right now.
Can I jump in real quick? And one of the reasons I use that is because I think for the person with like who maybe has like the very sensitive conscience, where it's like, okay, again, maybe the person behind me said the F word. They're not trying to steal everything. They're not going off. Like, they're not like breaking things. It's not like this crazy thing. But the person behind me in line said the F word. Like, do I have like the capacity to really like say something and to like, probably not, you know? And it's okay just to be like, okay, Lord, like, here's this person, here's this friend. They're not going to listen to me. Like, I don't have that place of life. Like, I'm just going to surrender them to you. Maybe oftentimes just surrendering somebody to the Lord, like that's what you can do. And that's doing something.
Absolutely. It could be a real moment of grace where you actually don't say anything, but you just pray for them. And, you know,
I don't know if it's true. I think it is though. I just remember in seminary, we got this, I don't know if it's like life talk from somebody from somewhere.
It sounds amazing.
Sounds like us quoting scripture.
But they were talking about like trying to make space in your schedule and just trying to be healthy with boundaries. And they mentioned something which was kind of like a light bulb moment for me, where whenever somebody asks you something, like sometimes you feel the immediacy, like I have to do something or say something right now. But there's almost nothing that needs your immediate like attention. And like, except for like, obviously this is putting aside like a car's on fire, the house on fire, like some obvious emergency. And I think that kind of translates into this where like usually like we might feel the immediacy to say something about something, but chances are you could give it a good 24 hours if you're going to say something, you know? And once again, this is fraternal correction, not like if you see like a real thing happening that needs correction and like an emergency, fill in the blank. But like if something like egregious that needs to happen, somebody's driving down the street the wrong way, like, hey, stop. Like, you know, like
So
something.
like I wouldn't call that fraternal correction.
You
That'd
know,
be like,
yeah.
I don't know.
And so that's how I'm trying to draw
Yeah.
a distinction of like, there's like fraternal correction implies a relationship that you're going to be consistently with this person. And so I think in those cases, because even too as a servant, like you realize like immediately, like there's a reaction that comes up of something and you're like, I'm going to wait because I might not be in the best place to do this. But also too, I think the waiting allows us to offer just, okay, Lord, like, where's my heart with this?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, do I want this because like I'm just pissed off at this guy and like this is my way of getting back at him? Or like, is there something there? Like, Jesus, can you speak to me about this specific thing? Or like, it really ticks me off when Father Mark Mary leaves the toilet seat up every single time, and I just want to get back at him. Like, is that the time to actually say that? Or
Yes. No, I'm just kidding.
or is it something where, okay, Lord, like just walk with me through this? But I think giving ourselves the space to be able to dialogue with the Lord about it, number one, but number two, just to allow things to calm down. This guy's going for it. I'm not talking. And just allows us the space to kind of just dialogue with the Lord about these things and to actually, okay, I'm going to approach this as opposed to just nailing somebody to the cross. I'm actually going to approach this because it's true.
It's good. No, you're totally right. It's a great image.
That we can actually, no, I'm going to help this person grow in love with Jesus. And I allow Jesus to speak to me about that place, maybe once again, that I'm not okay with myself, and therefore I could take it out on the other person, because that's sometimes what happens also. But just the suggestion is to give space to dialogue with the Lord, and then from there move.
Yeah, and I think the word discernment comes in. Like, I love the fact that like we should constantly be in dialogue with the Lord. Like, what are you doing here, Lord? Right? Even if you have a responsibility as a formator, or a parent, or a coach, like, or just in friendship, like that's the access the Lord wants us to have in our relationship with Him and with others. Jesus, like, this is happening. What do you want here? It's interesting. Like, we actually believe that Jesus has something to say about. So I think one of your things discernment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if that's what you meant by it, but it is actually discerning, hearing the voice of the Lord in a particular moment, in a particular situation. Jesus, what are you doing here? I think that's huge. And I was waiting. I didn't want to interrupt.
What are you doing in the moment here?
I was waiting for the proper time to do
Yeah, that discernment did not happen that well as I was speaking. He's open as LaCroix.
Number 2.
And then the other thing is this is it. Father Mark Mary talked about this kind of being an art. So assuming there's trust, assuming there's a relationship. I do think I've learned a lot along the way. We have a good friend of ours, Chris Benzinger, the Benzinger family. I think their sons might listen. But Chris definitely is filling his time with way, more awesome things and listening to this podcast. But Chris has taught us a lot. He's a big, just a leadership guy, and he kind of mentors a lot of us. And he just has this simple understanding of above the line and below the line. Like if the line is communication, below the line is going to be this relationship I'm in with someone where there's like suspicion. And again, there's control and lack of trust. And so I'm going at someone in this posture of like, why do you do that? And it's a lot of you and accusatory. And I'm here because I know it's bad. Like, I know it's better for you. Or again, it's kind of like, it's an accusation rather than above the line communication is curiosity and trust. Like, hey bro, so this has helped me out a lot. And when especially with friars who you're trying to go, like, maybe shepherd or just help go deeper. Hey bro, like when you do this, can you just tell me a little bit about that? Like for one of the guys, like this is not a friar, he doesn't have a problem cussing, but like if you have a friend who cusses a lot or says the Lord's name in vain a lot, like, hey bro, I noticed that as the more and more we hang out, like you say the Lord's name in vain. Like, can you just tell me about that? Is that something you always kind of struggled with, or what do you, when you say it, do you even know it? Like, and you can kind of just ask curious questions and you open a dialogue. You're like, oh, like I never really thought about that. Or so you're curious and trusting and able to ask questions, and it creates a space of dialogue instead of kind of definitive, I know it's best, why do you do that, accusing. So it's an art, but that's a part of the art of it, is where you're entering into conversation it's just kind of an easy way to talk about the above the line, below the line.
Yeah. And I would, did you have something?
You gonna talk
I have
about
something, but I'll do it after you.
You guys go ahead. Go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to have Father Innocent, like, I just thought of this as well. And PT mentioned this a little bit, Father PT. But Father, like, as the local servant, but also the postulant director, like, you could have every other guy in the house that's annoyed with the postulant about something, and we come to you about it, and you guys, like, he's not ready to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important too, like, the part of the discernment is like, am I in a good place to give it? But this guy might not have any sort of capacity to receive it. So we can, and then therefore the correction beats him up, and he's not, and then he, and it creates something worse, right? So I think it's just important, like that's why the discernment is important, because this guy might have not any, or my child might be particularly sensitive these days, and particularly rejected at school, and particularly bullied, and so when I get on him about something else, it's not going to be helpful. He can't receive that, right? So I don't know. I think that's probably an important part of the discernment.
And it's beautiful because it's not a cop-out where we need to have real conversations. But I think that's just a good thing to say, hey, listen, there's a pastoral fatherly sense of like, what can this guy receive right now?
Is it the best time?
Is this the best
yeah,
time?
Yeah.
And at some point, can we discern a better time where he could receive it a little bit better?
I just think that's important part of the.
Yeah, and it's a part of that too, in particular, just to get to know the guy's story at the end of the day, right? Because it's very easy, once again, to in your mind create this movie of how this guy's the villain and you're the hero, and it's not true. Once again, it's in your head. And so just one thing too is just avoid the self-talk, like just meaning like,
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to stay here and, oh man, I remember when he did that. Yeah. And then he did this other thing and he's totally out to get me. You're like, no. Break that and go have a conversation with them. And somebody told me the story at one point in time. It's just the image of, there was this guy on a train and he was sitting there reading his newspaper. And then there was another man with his family, and they were just going crazy, the kids in particular. And the guy was just getting angry and angry as the kids were jumping around the train car and stuff like that. And the guy says, you know what? I'm going to let this guy have it. And so he walked up to the guy and he said to the guy, he's like, hey, what's going on with you, man? Like your kids are all over the place. They're being a mess and then like they're loud and I can't read my paper. He says, like, I'm so sorry. We just got out of the hospital and their mom just passed away. And this is their first time outside the hospital room. And so I just figured to give him a little bit of time just to kind of just get their energy out. And so I don't know what I'm doing with my, and he went on with the story and the guys just instantly changed. Like the judgment became compassion. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can help you with? And so to avoid the self-talk and to actually go to the person, have a conversation. Hey, bro, like in freedom, like, hey, like what's going on when you say this? Or like, hey, just tell me like what happened at this situation without judgment, and allow him to tell his story. So that way you can actually meet it with compassion, as opposed to like, I know the ending of the story already. I'm just going to tell you about this thing. And
I think as we walk with people and get to know people, right? Like, really there is a genuine like goodwilledness that you expect that people have, right? And so if they're doing something, I've never met anyone who's just doing something just because they're evil and doing it just to do bad things, right? There's always more like happening below the surface. And that's why I do think that in our experience and just what I've seen, it almost always begins by asking questions. And so, and that's, but it also kind of, I think it does have to be a sincere question, right? Like, so I think like one of these things, I think you might have roommates who are just like smoking all the time, and it's like, okay, like I've seen the light. I don't want to do that. Like, how do I like help my friend stop? As we say, like smoking pot. Is it I just like, you need to stop that? It's bad for you. Or do you say like, hey, like I don't know, like how would you like just notice this is just something that's like going on every day. Like, is this something that like you want to be doing the rest of your life? Like what, I think there's like ways to like have sincere conversation, be like, okay, like what's going on underneath that like requires this medication? And I think if you allow the person to like go there and share that and like receive them there, now you can actually start to like, oh, okay, here's what's going on. Like, okay. And you don't want to be doing this and dependent on this for your whole life. Like what are some other options of like, can we look at those types of things? And I think that is really generally like what it's going to look like. It's less like fixing, and it's more like kind of like loving and receiving, and then sort of like together kind of trying to adjust. I don't know. That's kind of, does that resonate?
Yeah, you're backing away from judgment and criticism, and you're actually trying to receive a person, but also realizing that like you really care for him, and you actually don't want him to smoke pot.
Right.
But you're actually listening to him and receiving. And I think that's where I think that's great. Great
Yeah,
example.
I mean, it's like just another way to say what you said. Like, hey, bro, like I've noticed you've been doing this a lot more. Are you okay? And just like, and that question could be like, he could be like, yeah, I'm totally fine. Or he'd be like, whoa, like he totally, rather it's not about the poppers. It's like, yeah, like, you okay? And just kind of, so it's just the simplicity of that could like open something up, and that could just be a real moment of grace.
Sure. And maybe even if like, because I do think if you maybe feel like that might trigger them and put up walls, you can just be like, hey, would you like want to go, like, could we grab dinner and just like catch up and see how things are doing?
Yeah.
And you ask them how they're doing, if they're okay, but you don't necessarily say like, because you're doing this thing, I'm asking if you're
that makes
okay.
sense to me.
Right?
You might not lead with the pot,
Yeah.
but you might, just ask him.
Sorry, raised my hand. And also too, like a real thing that I've experienced in my own life. Yeah. Anyways, just as a brother, it's just praying for the Lord to make a space for it, for the conversation. Like just acknowledging, like, Jesus, I don't want to do this. This is tough. Can you make a space for this? Both in my heart, but even more so for this conversation. And I'm not gonna stress it. You're gonna make a space, and it'll become clear. And it's beautiful, like just multiple times where knowing I have to say something to a brother, all of a sudden I find myself in a car with him by myself, and just like, and then like all of a sudden the Lord's like, here's your time. Okay. And so yes, just also too, just to invite the Lord into the whole situation, as far as like just create a space for me to speak to him or her about the specific thing. Once again, if it's from you, and just allowing that the Lord to lead, as opposed to you having to, it's gonna happen now.
I would think probably like in a lot of your conversations, say like with postulants or friars, especially we'll say postulants, is you're fraternally correcting them, if you will, but they don't leave the conversation knowing that they were just fraternally corrected.
Yeah.
Right. And I think because it's like there's something, okay, he's actually just sort of like caring for me and receiving me, and then you're like talk about some things, and then it's like, okay, like what do we think about doing this instead, or another thing, or what do you think? And it feels like there's like a collaboration happening, and you're like coming to something together, and like the end is achieved, but it's the trust is continued to build. And it may not, it's harder with older guys, because I think we kind of like, we know the language, we know what's happening. It's like, okay, like this is, what I mean?
Just tell me.
Yeah. Well, but just like you kind of, okay, Father is asking this question. This is his nice way of correcting me. It's harder to get away with, but
I mean, I think once the real thing is like, if you invest time in people and you listen to them and listen to their stories, then they'll respond in like kind back to you, especially like. And so I mean, just a particular brother, I listened to him for a while about something, and I had to ask him something tough. And after the whatever conversation, however long it was, I said, hey bro, can I ask you something? And I asked him, he's like, oh yeah, sure. Like it was like in my mind, it was gonna be a lot worse, but because I've given him the space to speak freely about just different things, I think it's something where, once again, like, yeah, just the Lord invites us to be, but even more so, I think it's the listening and being with the person that's the most important thing.
I just recently told the postulants this as well, but to try to set Father to sit up, like a couple of guys in the military kind of use this model, but the guys in the military are always trained to ask for feedback. And so like, again, like to your point, Father Mark Mary, in this like mutual kind of reality where like, I know my formator, like go up to Father Innocent after something. Hey, Father, you have any feedback for me? Like kind of just create a space where that's easier for people above you to kind of create something where like, hey, yeah, bro, I was thinking that maybe you could have a goal this month of improving on this or growing with this. I do see, I don't know how that, I don't translate that into families or translate that into our friends, but like if there's something where they know I'm open to it, like I'm not gonna blow up at you if you come up with something to encourage me or to see that I can grow in, right? And so I wonder if there's something there that's a dynamic that could be helpful on different levels.
Yeah, thank you. I forgot to get into that, but I do think that's part of it. It was actually reading like a CL communal liberation thing where it basically used the language. It's like, I'm imperfect, and actually other people know I'm imperfect too. And it's like, but there's like we're really insecure. Like I think we all like recognize and can say easily, no, I have things to work on, whatever. But we get very self-conscious about the idea of like other people seeing it, and part of us is just like, okay, no, that's part of reality. Okay, that's just like what things that we don't have to be like super self-conscious about it. But I do think we want to have the openness to like the idea that other people can encourage us, and they have like perspective on things we don't have, and like we want to be open to being sort of like loved and sort of guided and shepherded, because I do think as well there's like a real thing of like, who are you to tell me what to do? And sometimes it's a thing, but being open to, and even creating like a space like a safe space where you go to somebody like, hey, I don't know, like, yeah, just is there anything else? Like, am I doing anything that's kind of bothering you? Whatever, anything any sort of blind spots I might have. Even that though, you do want to be careful with it, like, because it's not like that doesn't get. If somebody comes up to you like that, it doesn't mean, all right, I'm going to give you the 20-point
Here's
list.
my list.
Right? Like, because that's going to be hurtful as well.
I don't know if you have another list, but a part of this is I was just thinking maybe we could give some feedback to Father Angelus like in real time. But this would be to my point that I'm joking, but a setting actually matters as well. Mm-hmm. And so, like never in public do you like give someone a correction, or at least I there's a very like
there's views there, like, right, again, if you're a coach, there's a thing.
Fair enough. Sorry.
Or there are ways to do it.
But I think that the most effective thing, and again, maybe just our experience, is that you just want to be very aware that okay, so I'm going to give this person some feedback, but it's always in a context where they're not going to be embarrassed or they're not going to be like publicly humiliated. But like there's a fatherly, motherly way of saying, okay, what's the best time for this as well? And so just setting is important.
You all right?
I'm good.
So, Father
I'm glad we
Angelus,
talked about this again,
How are you doing? Just noticed
I just noticed
you've been drinking a lot of LaCroix.
Are you okay?
Is there something?
Yeah, if we could end this episode soon because I've been drinking a lot of you know what I mean?
Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your goodness and for our humanity and being in it. And we just pray and trust you all for relationships and discernment, especially just how you're inviting us to love and to care for one another, but may it all be from you, with you, in you, through you, and truly guided by you. And Lord, may we also just grow in our just freedom to be seen and to be loved in our strengths and our weaknesses. And thank you for Father Angelus and Father Pierre Toussaint and Father Innocent and Chris and Rob and Jeremy. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Those are all the guys behind the scenes, some of the guys behind the scenes. Shout out to Franciscan University in Baton Rouge. Had a chance to visit them. Spend some time. That was fun. And to the Bro family. Thanks, Bro family. Especially for pizza.
For pizzas, right. Thanks, Bro family.
Bro, do you guys just not have friends? What are you guys doing with your lives? Lonely. All right. See everybody. Bye.
Y'all.
Poco a poco vamos a llegar. Somos peregrinos and you know that's who we are. We make our way. Hey, hey. Little by little we learn a little more each day that God is love, that life is short, that all will be well. And I know